I want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the information in Module 3, especially after finishing grading Module 2. Module 3, we focus on this concept of guidance instead of discipline when we think about working with children and their social and emotional development. In chapters 8 and 9, there's a lot of discussion about the words we use with children. And our text and the external readings, the supplemental readings that are offered, really put an emphasis on internal motivation. Acknowledge, I see you doing, or I can tell you are sad, or I see that you put a lot of work into this drawing. Acknowledging. Encouraging is another way to look at this that puts the motivation within the child and the child's feelings first. Even questioning, why did you make this choice? How could you do blank differently? What else might we do? So not necessarily suggesting a particular idea, but instead using questions to get a child to think about what they might want to do or what they might want to say. A child is rude. Instead of saying, that was rude, you need to say, I'm sorry. You could say, I heard words that were harsh and made Sally cry. What other words could you use to say no, but wouldn't make Sally cry maybe? And so putting the question back to the child helps the child start thinking and problem solving rather than you putting your feelings and your judgment first. The readings and the textbook take the emphasis off of external motivation. External motivation would be you judging, saying you are wrong. That is beautiful. Well, that's your opinion. Oh, what a beautiful picture. I love, and then saying what you love about the picture. Praising puts the external motivation, so the child becomes worried about how you feel. How many of us have that child in the classroom that is constantly asking, teacher, do you like? Teacher, see what I'm doing? Part of that is totally age appropriate and temperament appropriate. Some children need that and seek that more than others. But a lot of that is also taught to the child. And so I encourage us as teachers to put the emphasis not on our judgment or the judgment of others, but instead helping the child put the emphasis on the internal motivation. Why? Why would that be important? And I would say because the reason we want children to learn to act and engage in learning or do what they do is not because of the people around them. Because I think we all look at our lives and can identify times when we were with people who were not making good choices, or people who did not make us feel good, or we were in situations where we were down in the dumps and low. And what we want to try and do is help children become adults who can find motivation and encouragement from within, even when things around them are not good or as quality as we would like. Also, in doing so, we also help encourage and model for children how they can support other people and their own success, because it doesn't become a competition. And instead, again, it emphasizes the individual and the individual happiness and feelings. And so the children can then encourage each other rather than judging each other. And so that's really where this guidance and this idea of encouragement versus praise becomes so important. Another big concept in this module is about age-appropriate options. And so as you're reading chapters 8 and 9 especially, think about what is appropriate. The idea of classroom meetings, the idea of interacting with the children and questioning to guide their behaviors, having them draw and write out situations or brainstorming ideas, those are appropriate for children that can sustain that longer conversation, for those preschoolers, kindergartners, and older. Infants and toddlers are different. you're going to model for infants and toddlers. You're going to give them the words and not expect them to have the words. I noticed a lot in our tallying negative behaviors assignment. For those of you who have turned those in already, I noticed a lot of students emphasizing self-regulation, and that's something that's coached and developed over time, and so you're going to model a lot of that. And so very much keep in mind here about what would be appropriate for different age groups, because this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of strategy suggestion. The textbook really gets into mistaken behavior and really starting to look at, with mistaken behavior, it is not always just about what skill the child is missing. Sometimes mistaken behavior is the child's trying to do something or wants something, so they don't have a skill or they don't have a behavior, so that which results in them doing something negative. It can also be that they're being asked to do something that is not appropriate, that the problem is not the child. So the reason can sometimes not be the child, it can be the environment or the adult. And so with mistaken behavior, we have to recognize as teachers our expectations and our own temperaments. One of the supplemental readings in this module, actually two of them I believe, are about boys getting in trouble in early childhood. And statistically, we know that boys get in trouble more than girls in early childhood settings. So that's everywhere from toddlers through elementary school. Boys tend to get in trouble more. Boys are not naughty, but I bet you most boys see themselves as naughty within their school setting. So when we look at the research about this, a lot of it is the expectations of the teachers are not appropriate. I noticed in some of our tallying negative behaviors, there was a lot of fidgeting and movement and kinds of gross motor issues during whole group structured time. So perhaps it isn't about the child learning self-regulation. Perhaps that negative behavior is happening because of when the child is being asked to do something. So perhaps the expectation is not appropriate. Perhaps it's the temperament of the teacher is a mismatch, and the temperament of the teacher needs to be acknowledged, and you can't change the teacher's temperament, but the teacher can change the way she's acting and reacting to her internal desires. And so as you're reading here, we really want to emphasize not solving that problem in this part of the course, but just recognizing that our temperaments and our internal clocks and expectations impact our perception of what's happening in the classroom and with the child. And so that we just have to really be cognizant of that. I hope you are diving into class. I see a lot of work coming in, and hopefully a little bit of this lecture helps as you finish up your work.